guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to try this whole reading thing just a little bit different than we typically do in our classroom. No matter what, we never read the story in a full day. Okay, so we usually read it piece by piece. You'll have your text questions paper that has been assigned to you, and we'll answer a few of those questions a day. Okay, and then we'll make sure by the end of the week that you have read the story incomplete to a parent or a friend over the phone, or we'll find a solution for that. Okay, so I'm going to press play on here, and I want you to pay attention to the essential question, and that essential question was on your journal assignment this morning. So for example, it said, how can the choices you make affect relationships with other people? So think about the choices that you've made or a choice that you could make and how it affects the people around you. I think we're all thinking about that these days, whether I wear my mask or I don't wear my mask and how that affects the people around me. Whether I believe that it is something that's really going to prevent the sickness or not, you have to think about how that's going to affect people that you come encounter with. So I would like you to write about that today in your journal. All right, so we're going to press play and I'm going to stop it in just a bit. One of the things I want you to take note of is the italic paragraph at the top. Okay, that gives you a little excerpt of what's been happening in this novel before we get the snippet. Because once again, the school story is a novel that was written by Andrew Clements. So it's only a few chapters out of the novel.
Story by Andrew Clements. Selection illustrated by C.F. Payne. Natalie Nelson's widowed mother, Hannah, is a children's book editor at Shipley Junior Books.
Let's go ahead and pause it right there. So if we know that Natalie's mother is a widow, then we know that her mom was married to Natalie's dad, who has now passed away. So it's just Natalie and Hannah now in the household because their father has passed away. She is an editor, so she is somebody who works at a book company that then edits the books that you write and then decides and determines if it's something that they're going to publish with their company.
Hannah's boss, Lisa, is pressuring her to find a school story that will become the company's next best-selling book. Natalie thinks The Cheater, a novel she just wrote, could be that book, but she doesn't want to disclose her true identity.
Right there, we saw two vocabulary words. We bounce back to remembering what the word pressuring means, and we've talked about good pressure and we've talked about bad pressure and what that could do. So Hannah's boss right now is pressuring her, so she is really urging her to find a book that will be something that she can publish and it can be a best-selling book. Then later on, it says she doesn't want to disclose her identity. So she doesn't want her mom to know, or she doesn't want to reveal her true identity because she knows that her mom then will not publish the book, being that it's her daughter's. Okay? Because she could just want it because it's her daughter's book, whether it's good or not.
Natalie's friend, Zoe Reisman, comes up with a daring plan. Turn Natalie into author Cassandra Day and Zoe into her agent, Zizi, from the Sherry Clutch Agency. All Natalie has to do is make sure her story ends up with Hannah rather than with Hannah's coworker, Ella, keeper of unread manuscripts. Natalie got off the elevator at Shipley Junior Books at 4:25. She walked to the desk and handed a thick brown envelope to the receptionist. Natalie smiled and said, "A messenger brought this. It's for my mom. Do you need to check it in, or can I take it right back to her?" He looked at the address label and said, "All it needs is a date stamp and my initials." The stamp made a mechanical ka-chunk sound as he pressed it onto the front of the envelope, and then he scribbled his initials below the date. Now the package looked official. "Here you go." He handed the envelope back to Natalie, then pushed the security button to open the door for her. Natalie wound her way through the maze to her mom's office.
And there we see another vocabulary word that we've talked about, the word maze. A maze is a confusing path, so they're explaining to us that it isn't a confusing path when Natalie's trying to get to her mom's office, so she's winding her way through. Pay attention to the next part of the paragraph. That's going to be your first question that we're looking at on your text questions. It says, make an inference. Why might Natalie's mouth felt dry as she walked to her mom's office? So we're going to infer why we think her mouth is dry without actually knowing.
Her mouth was dry. Even though she'd been here 100 times, she felt like a spy sneaking into a strange building. Hi, Mom. As her mom swung her chair around and smiled.
All right. You'll have to just be patient with me too, because my girlies are here today learning. So I might be interrupted a few times, but that's okay. So bouncing back to the paragraph that we just read, why is her mouth dry? It says she's been here 100 times. She felt like a spy sneaking into a strange building. So why would her mouth be dry? Okay, you have to take into reference what it means if your mouth is dry. Typically, it means that you're nervous. So I'll give you the first hint. She may be nervous. That's part of your first sentence there. And remember to make complete sentences. I know we hate it. We want to just write she's nervous or nervous, but I need she is nervous. And then I want you to explain to me why she is nervous. Okay?
Natalie glanced at the phone console on the desk beside the computer screen. The message waiting light was dark. That meant her mom had already listened to Zizi's message. Here, Natalie said, and she handed the envelope to her mom. This is for you. Hannah Nelson looked at the envelope. The large address label was printed in bright green ink. She read the return address aloud. The Sherry Clutch Literary Agency. I just had a message from this agent, but I don't think I know her. Oh well. And she dropped the envelope onto the papers beside her computer. Could you give me a juice or something, Natalie? I didn't even stop for lunch today. Natalie returned.
All right. I'm pausing it there. This is not a text question that you have in your papers today, but it's a question I'd like you to think about. And then the answer that I'm going to give you. It says, what plot events show how Zoe and Natalie get Hannah to read Natalie's story? So if we think about what happened here, Zoe calls Hannah. Okay. Zoe is pretending to be a made-up agency. That's where the Sherry Clutch Literary Agency, that is made up. Okay. And Natalie delivers her story to her right about the same time under a false name of Cassandra Day. So she's just acting like, oh, well, this just came in here. Here's this envelope. Voila. Okay. So they're sidetracking her with the phone call and the manuscript, and they're trying to trick her. So that's the plot events that we're paying attention to. We have one more question that we're going to answer at the bottom of this page, and then we will be finished for today's instruction as far as text questions go. So you'll only be doing question 1 and question 2.
Returned with 2 bottles of apple juice and some shortbread cookies. Her mom held up her bottle for a toast, and when Natalie clinked it, her mom said, "Here's to our weekend." At that moment, Letha walked in. She stepped across the space carefully and leaned over to look at Hannah's computer screen. Natalie caught the sharp scent of Letha's perfume and took a step backward. With a strange smile, Letha said, "I love the weekend too, but I don't think it's quite here yet. Have you double-checked all those revisions, Hannah? The production manager is calling me for that text every half hour, and we can't get out of here until it's released." Glancing around Hannah's workspace, she snatched up the new envelope and said, "What's this?" Hannah said, "That? It's just a manuscript. Must be a new agency. Sherry something?" Letha read the label. Sherry Clutch. Oh, Cherry. Oh, yes, I believe I've heard of her. She's supposed to be very bright. Listen, buzz me the second you're sure all those revisions check out, okay? And I want you to give this a look over the weekend. Letha dropped the envelope on Hannah's lap and swept out of the office. Hannah shook her head and gave Natalie a wry smile. So much for the weekend, eh? Listen, I've got to get back to work. Tim is probably gone by now, so you can hang out over there, okay? Natalie said, "Sure, Mom." As she walked over to Tim's cubicle, Natalie tried not to smile. The editorial director of Shipley Junior Books had just pretended that she knew all about the Sherry Clutch Literary Agency. And then she had ordered her best editor to read a novel written by a 12-year-old.
All right, another question just to make your mind think is, how does that last sentence of this paragraph contribute to the development of the story's plot? So right here it says, and then she had ordered her best editor to read a novel written by a 12-year-old, okay? So it shows that Natalie and Zoe's plan has been, they have succeeded. They have now tricked the mom into reading this. So it shows that it is a great development in the story that it's being able to follow through. Okay, one more little paragraph and we're going to go over the question that you have.
Alone in Tim's office, Natalie grinned. For the first time ever, she was glad that her mom's boss was a fire-breathing, stuck-up know-it-all.
Right there, that sentence. And I'll tell you, every year my kids love this sentence, okay? Number 2 says, Natalie describes Letha as a stuck-up know-it-all. Support her statement with details from the text. So you're going to write me a sentence or two why Natalie thinks Letha is a stuck-up know-it-all, okay? What does she say? What action does she do to represent that she is stuck up, okay? So that description there should be represented in your text question. Once again, for Monday, August the 31st, you're only having to answer number 1 and number 2, and this is the part where you will be finished with your reading for today.